Hello and welcome to the Thursday, April 7th, 2022 Parks and Human Services Committee. I am Councilmember Michaud, and on my right we have Councilmember Court, and on my left we have Councilmember Troutner. Are there any changes to the agenda today?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. There are no agenda changes from staff.
Okay. All right. Up next, we have approval of the minutes from March 3rd, 2022. Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes of March 3rd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Okay, moving on. We have a presentation from Mark Madfi from Public Works about the Garrison Creek Park impacts and de-minimus determination.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Madfi, Design Engineering Supervisor. And it's an informational item to let you know about the planned 224th Phase 3 project and impacts to Garrison Creek Park and the requirements needed as part of the federal environmental documentation for the project. And PowerPoint. Sorry. So now I'll provide a brief project description and discuss the proposed impacts on the park and then discuss some of the documentation needed for the project. This slide shows the project limits. And so we're starting off the project, this phase, where phase 2 of the 224th corridor project left off at 94th Place South and extending it up the hill up to 99th Avenue South. And we're widening the road to 3 lanes, adding curb gutter sidewalks, planter strips, sidewalk, storm drainage, street lighting, and we're also including a roundabout up at 98th and right up in there, right in that intersection. Be a little roundabout at 216th and 98th. And then Garrison Creek Park is right down here. And the next slide shows more detail on that. So this slide shows more detail of the park area. The property is owned by the City of Kent Water Department and includes the city's Garrison 6 million gallon water reservoir, but also includes recreational facilities maintained by the Parks Department. The improvements will extend approximately 3 feet beyond the right-of-way line of the park, which is about where the fence line is. And the shaded area, oops, one slide beyond. The shaded area in green, or EC here, that's the limits of the fill that will extend beyond the sidewalk onto the park. And I'll skip a slide. So these are some pictures of the park, the north end of the park, and the area that will be impacting. The pictures on the left are inside the park, and the pictures on the right are just outside the park, adjacent to the roadway. And the fence line is about the right-of-way line. So our sidewalk's going to extend about 3 feet beyond that fence line, and then slope will come down beyond that. And so those are more pictures of inside the park. Those stakes show the limits of the roadway slope that will come down behind the back of sidewalk. And there's this is a roadway cross-section here on the bottom. And if I can highlight. So this area is kind of a detail of what we're looking at, of the slope going back behind the sidewalk and then matching into the slope of the park. And those stakes there depict where the slope would end at the park. So really won't impact any trees. There may be some trimming of some of the trees there, but it'll just be slope about the same steepness as the existing slope there. So the adding the new sidewalk and planter strip will help enhancing the community connection to the park and provide a safe environment for the community. And so on the documentation side, since the project includes federal funding, the city needs to complete the environmental documentation that includes documenting impacts to any 4F facilities, which include parks or recreational areas. The documentation needed includes what's called a de-minimus letter. This is a letter from the city stating that the impacts to the park are minimal. We also need a public hearing, and this is scheduled at the council meeting on April 19th. And at that public hearing, it will include a resolution for council declaring the impacts to the park as de minimis and will not adversely affect the features, attributes, or activities of the park, and authorizing the mayor and parks director to sign any necessary documentation. So that's because we have federal funding on the project, that's required as part of the federal funding. So just another kind of a step to go through. So that's why I'm here, kind of give you guys an outline before the council meeting on the 19th.
Thank you for your presentation, Mark. It seems like it will improve the conditions of the park.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Troutner has a comment or question.
What's the timing as far as when this is supposed to take place?
2024. So we will probably do a joint utility trench to underground all the overhead power lines in 23, and then 2024 would be when we would do these improvements.
And then don't we have improvements coming to Garrison Creek as well?
Hi, Council
Terry.
members. So this is a project that I'm reviewing with Mark. We do have a project that's coming. We're kicking off the design phase for Garrison Creek this year. We would anticipate construction either 2023 or 2024, so we'll be working closely with them on the timing of this project as it relates to our work, but there's really no conflict because our work is primarily happening inside the park, so it would really just be potentially access conflicts, but those are all things we can certainly work through.
Definitely a needed facelift in that whole area, so it's going to be nice to have all of those improvements, especially the sidewalks.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yep. And just to let everybody know, there's an open house this evening, actually, from 5 to 7 at Panther Lake Elementary School. So any of the viewers watching, if they want to attend and get more information about the project as a whole, there's an open house tonight.
Good info. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Terry Youngman to talk about some grant applications.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. Thanks for having me here tonight. Terry Youngman, Park Planning and Development Manager for the Kent Parks Department. So nice to see your faces. So I have 3 items I'm presenting tonight, the first of which is the 4 resolutions for grant applications to the Recreation and Conservation Office. So that's with the state. There are 3 distinct sites in which we are applying for grants: the Mendel property acquisition, the Springwood Park Renovation project, and the Ruth property acquisition. Within that, we have 2 different grant programs that we are applying through. So the Springwood, Mendel, and Ruth are all applying for the local parks grant program. Mendel and Ruth is the acquisition. Springwood is a park development grant. And then Ruth, we are also applying for land and water conservation funds through RCO. So there's actually 2 grants that we are applying for the potential acquisition of the Ruth property. The Ruth property is, for context, the last remaining assemblage of properties for Clark Lake Park. So that would be the gap on the north side of the property. And the Mendel property, you'll recall, is the one we closed on last year. And so this is the reimbursement for the remaining funds that the city expended. So this is basically filling that gap in funding that we spent out of our capital with RCO grant dollars. So that is all for this item, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. All right. So these are all covered under the same motion. So can I get a motion?
Chair, I move to recommend council adopt the resolutions authorizing the submittal of grant applications number 22-1362, number 22-1372, and number 22-1478, and number 22-1479 to the Recreation and Conservation Office to assist in funding the acquisition of the Mendel property at Upper Mill Creek Canyon, the renovation of Springwood Park, and the acquisition of Ruth property at Clark Lake.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay. Next, Terry.
All right, next item. This
yes,
is
there you
the
go.
agreement with Berger Partnership for the Springwood Park Renovation Design and Construction Administration. Back in 2017, the Parks Department conducted an RFQ process to select a consultant for the master planning of Springwood Park. Berger Partnership was selected at that time, and that's the contract that we've been operating under to this point. It only carried us through the planning phase, and so now this contract we are proposing would be to carry that effort forward with the same consultant through full design process and construction administration of that project. So this builds upon the work that we completed in the planning phase, taking that the vision that we've set for Springwood Park forward into final design. So total contract amount for this consultant services agreement is $320,830.
Any questions or comments for Terry? Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a consultant services agreement with Berger Partnership PS in the amount of $320,830 for design and construction support services for the Springwood Park renovation, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Yay! I'm excited about that. Okay. Next item, Terry again.
All right, the last item that I have for you tonight is an agreement with EarthCorps for the Mill Creek Canyon Trail repair. This is a continuation of work that we started last year with EarthCorps, in which we did brushing, tread clearing, and built some new structures within the existing trail system in Mill Creek Canyon to reestablish those trails, repair failing infrastructure, and breathe some new life into that trail system. So this is a continuation of that work. We're actually going to be coming back and dealing with some of the problematic areas that we've identified since that first phase was completed. There's some wet areas. You remember encountering some of those wet areas with us when we hiked the trail system. So we'll be coming back and dealing with some of those low spots, brazing those up, building structures where necessary. But we're also going to be dealing with a washout that occurred this year along Mill Creek, actually between where we started our work at Earthworks Park and up to the American Legion Hall. There's a pretty significant slide that's happened along the hillside there that's interrupted the trail. And so with the help of EarthCorps, we're going to be looking to address that either with a reroute that gets people up and out of the canyon and then back down again into the trail system, or potentially looking at routing through there with some additional structures. We're going to be looking at that in more detail with the geotechnical, but this contract would help us with the actual construction of whatever improvements are necessary to get that through again. Unfortunate, but that's the dynamics of a living, breathing canyon. So it deals with those, but it also continues to march upstream from where we left off last year at the American Legion and continues those same types of improvements beyond. So the total amount for this contract is $192,036, and expect to see one of these contracts each year as we continue to work on trail repair and renovation work until that work is complete. And this will be moving in tandem with the master planning efforts within Mill Creek Canyon. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this one.
Any questions?
I have a quick question. Does this cost include if you need to reroute?
Yes. So we've left ourselves 3 options to address that. We feel that the amount that is here is going to do one of those 3 options. Either reroute, continue through, or look at some other option. At least one of those will be done this year. It may be such that we're rerouting around and then coming back, depending on what geotechnical analysis we get. If they say you really shouldn't build anything, you need more significant structure here to get through, going through that existing location, we have to put on hold until we gain some more information and better understanding of what to do there. But the goal is that this summer, there is a way through that canyon to get all the way to the upper portion.
Thank you.
Does this also include, this is probably separate funds, like if there's any debris removal that needs to happen?
Separate contract, that's the one with Clean Harbors, and that's one we already have in place. And we're actually going to be looking to execute an amendment for some additional work, ongoing work to keep that canyon clean. Our operations crews are doing an amazing job of cleaning out as much as they can, but we need this supplemental agreement with Clean Harbors to keep up with that. So we have that agreement in place that's already being used, and this is really only focused on trail repair work.
Okay. Any other questions? Ready for a motion?
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with EarthCorps in the amount of $192,036 for trail repair in Mill Creek Canyon, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes. And that concludes our meeting. We are adjourned.